Yeah, good evening.
Hi, I think we're live now.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome, Screens and Sanity, a modern parent's guide. We're so glad you could join us today. My name is Dia. I'm the Chief Communication Officer here at SDT. And today we're having a conversation that's incredibly highly anticipated. It's one that we've gotten lots and lots of questions about from any parent. How do we deal with parents? How do we deal with our kids, with their technology? What do we do about it? I want you to know, if you're tuning in, that you are not alone. Yeah, you are not the only parent dealing with this. Our expert today, Dr. Nitin Anand from the Shut Clinic at NIMHANS, is going to take how we have on adolescents and their relationship to technology, practical tips on how to find balance in using our devices, as well as how to navigate the need for more serious intervention when it is required. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce a bit about Shloka Devaya Trust. SDT is a mental health crisis intervention center that's been operational since about February of this year, but we've made some massive strides in the months we've been working. Our mission is to provide effective, accessible, as well as replicable crisis intervention services wherever and whenever needed. We do this through several paths, namely our hotline, our free counseling services for youth between the ages of 12 and 24, especially those dealing with stress, with anxiety, with depression, or with relationship issues. We do this through training programs for students and educators in schools and colleges, as well as through awareness webinar we are hosting now and webinars for youth. Dr. Nitin Anand, our expert today, is an additional professor of psychology of clinical psychology at NIMHANS, a consultant at the OCD clinic at NIMHANS, as well as along with being a consultant at the Service for Healthy Use of Technology clinic again at NIMHANS. Shut is the first clinic in India that was started to manage technology addiction among adolescents and young adults. Anand has received his clinical psychology training and doctorate degree from NIMHANS in Bangalore and has obtained a postgrad degree in human rights law from NLSIU in Bangalore as well. His exploration of psychological correlates include his exploration correlates of excessive internet use, technology addiction, social media addiction, psychotherapeutic management of internet addiction, and promotion of healthy use of technology among young adults, and the development of psychological assessments. Welcome, Dr. Anand. Thank you for taking the time to share with us. Over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dia, for the very warm welcome on behalf of the Shloka Devaya Trust. At the outset, I would like to thank the Shloka Devaya Trust for giving me this opportunity to be with all of you in the evening today. I think undoubtedly smartphone addiction or excessive or problematic use of smartphones maybe continues to remain and will remain one of the most significant or the most difficult of the parenting challenges of the digital era. So I think keeping that into focus, I think this would be an apt webinar to basically focus on what is problematic use of technology and how we can basically address it, and especially for adolescents and young adults. So I work at a clinic called as a SHUT clinic. It's the acronym for Service for Healthy Use of Technology. It is the first of its kind clinic which was established in the way back in 2014 at NIMHANS. And now we are nearly completing more than a decade we have completed at offering these services. At NIMHANS, at the SHUT clinic, primarily we offer these services of technology addiction to adolescents, young adults, and as well as to adults as well. It's outpatient services which are being offered from this clinic, which is based out of BTM layout in Bangalore. Yeah, just to share a bit about NIMHANS, it is at the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences. It's basically one of the apex centers for mental health education, patient care, and research in the country. It's also known to provide best standards of clinical care, quality training, and cutting research edge opportunities in the frontier areas of mental health. And one of the key features of this institute till date, from the time of its inception, remains a combination of research, training, with promotive and preventive aspects and curative aspects of clinical services in the field of mental health and neurosciences. So at the Shut Clinic, we offer services for social media addiction, internet gaming addiction, smartphone addiction, and all other kinds of behavioral addiction which are there. But these are some of the key areas which we actually offer interventions for. We also have a helpline which we run on 2 days of the week. I think it is Tuesdays and Fridays on the first half of the day for getting in touch with us, and also to basically address the concerns, questions, queries primarily of parents, because they are the ones who are the first responders to the challenges which are being faced by adolescents. At times, we also get calls directly from young adults for this service. We have also been covered by the British Medical Journal way back when we opened the Shut Clinic in NIMHANS. So it is basically a validation of the need for such kind of services in India. Now, just to give you a brief overview of the kind of users which we have, the young adolescents or young adults which we see at a clinic, what are their user perceptions primarily? They believe that primarily they are the only appreciated in the online world and not in the real world. They believe that their best friends are primarily in the online world, because that is where they believe they get validated, they get respected, they feel affiliated there. At times, they also feel that they feel good online if they spend time online in comparison to offline. And sometimes watching web series or Netflix helps them forget their problems. In a crux, what they primarily mean or communicate is basically, in a way, at times it looks like the virtual world is the best, and they only need that, and rest is all meaningless. Also, what we see is the parents' concerns which they come up with. So they believe that their child is unwilling to spend time with them, or the spouse has no time for the family. They believe that they are only interested to be with their online friends and not with the family. Also, overall, they get the understanding that they're losing their child or their spouse to the virtual world. So these are some of the main concerns with which they actually approach us with, and we will see across this presentation. Basically, initially, I'll take you to a few questions which we'll keep in mind, and go ahead with the entire presentation. Some of the aspects which we can keep with us in our mind is about, are we consuming technology excessively? Are we losing our relationships to excessive technology use? Are we losing our health? Is the technology use consuming our friendships? Is it consuming our skills and our time? So we'll try to keep these questions in the background, and we'll try to basically see whether by the end of the presentation we can get answers to some of these questions. Just to start with, just to offer you a perspective about the internet usage overall in India. India ranks second behind China in terms of total number of internet users. India has around 45% of internet penetration, and it is least among the top countries. You can see that, and it is continues to grow steeply at a rate of around average around 5%. And by this year end, I think it will increase to around 53%. If you see some of these figures, you can see the US market is nearly saturated at around 82% of penetration, and you can see the huge gap which is there from 45 to 82%. Means there is enormous amounts of potential which exists there for increasing the internet accessibility in our country. Moving on to the global overview of the social media use which is there, you can see that the 5.41 billion or 5.4 billion people actually are accessing social media across the globe. And you can see that every year, nearly 1.18% on our 95 million people get added to this cohort of people which are using these services. Year on year, there is an increase of around 4.7%. And the amount of time which usually is spent on this is around 18 hours, 46 minutes approximately on an average. And average number of social media platforms which are being used each month also is somewhere around 6.84. So just to give you an idea, this gives you an indication that majority of people, nearly all of the people, or nearly at least 60% of the people of the world, with the population being somewhere around 8.5 billion across the globe, you can see that majority of people are on social media platforms, and it is a global phenomena which is there. Now, what we see in India is also something similar. We see that there are 491 million social media users which are there. However, the year-on-year change, you can see around 6.3% is the year-on-year change, and right, 29 million new users keep on getting added. It is like on a daily basis, 2.5 hours nearly are being spent. On a monthly basis, it says more than 7.6 platforms are being used on an average on social media platforms, and the total population which is using it at this point of time is somewhere around 33.7%. So all these things are being there, and the social media entities which are being there is 60.9%. In terms of the gender ratio, you can see there are the preponderance of males. Around 65% of this usage is primarily by males in comparison to females, which is around 34.5%. In terms of overall users, just to showcase you across the globe, just a comparison to give an idea. In USA, you can see this use of social media is somewhere around 82%, followed by Europe, it is around 84%. Southeast Asia is 72%, and India, it is still around 34%. Just to give you the overview of the gap which exists, and the concern about if we are still having so many concerns with social media usage or internet usage just being somewhere around 34% or around 45%. Imagine the concerns and the challenges which are likely to come as and when this penetration of or accessibility of these internet or the social media usage keeps on increasing with time. I think one of the perspectives in terms of the users, you can see how many, I think these are the most common social media usage platforms which are used by young adults and by adolescents. Though we say that Facebook is not being used, it's an old social networking platform, but the available data with here, it's around 3.7 billion people still use Facebook, followed by WhatsApp, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. You can see this is how it progresses, but there's a huge number of people who still continue to use Facebook as a networking tool. In terms of the what they actually use it for, all these platforms, they are looking for at times entertainment. They are following some research or they are doing some of these brands. They are trying to keep up to date with news. They're using it for all their messaging, family and friends, or possibly they are trying to post the photos or videos they're trying to share. So this is what primarily they are actually end up doing. And in terms of, it's slightly older data, but just to give you a context, in a month, they are spending good amounts of time, say nearly around 30 hours of a time on social media applications, and especially on YouTube, is around 30 hours. On WhatsApp, it is around 20 hours. Facebook is around nearly the similar time. Instagram is a little less. So just to give an idea of how much of usage which we're having, and yeah, this remains nearly similar in terms of application. I think we can see YouTube is there, Facebook is there, Instagram is there. This is the India specific data. In brief, what I'm just trying to indicate here to you is that actually the amount of time which is being spent on all those social media platforms or on internet, other platforms which are there, you're basically taking away the time away from relationships, time away from skill learning, from academics, and from work performance or academic learning, because the amount of time which just has been there, it could actually be used for other more productive purposes as well. WhatsApp, just this is data which is there in the public domain. So you can see WhatsApp is the tool, or this is the social media networking app which is the highest used in India, and there are other countries which follow through with it there. But India continues to lead it even after many years of its basically launch, which is there. Also, in terms of data available, in terms of prevalence data available for the usage, this was one of the studies which was done at NIMHANS with the funding from the Indian Council of Medical Research, New Delhi. And these are some of the prevalence statistics based on the community data which we have got. So you can see internet addiction was found to be around 1.3% of the population. Mobile phone addiction was found around 4.1% of the population. Social networking sites addiction was found in 3.5%, which is one of the main things smartphone and social networking sites addiction is one of the main concerns which is there in young adolescents and adults. Shopping addiction was found to be 4%. Pornography consumption was found 0.2, which we do not believe. I think it is socially desirable data which has come to us. Gambling addiction, that is offline and online, also was found to be 1.2, but we also do not believe in that. Another subsequent study was done which also indicated video game addiction to be around 7%. And this was primarily seen to be, I think, among males, among male adolescents. The sample size for this study was around 2,800 and was done around Bangalore. Okay, so with these figures which are available to us, it basically gives us an indication as to where likely we are moving. Are we all potentially moving towards digital addiction, or majority of us are at risk for developing a digital addiction? To give you all slightly more information about this, these are some of the landmark studies which were done in India, and it was a multi-center trials, multi-center studies which were done. So this study was also done on medical students to find what kind of internet usage they have and what are the risk factors which they have. So it was found that around mild internet addiction was found in 27%, moderate was found in 10.4, and severe addiction to the internet, which fulfills all the criteria, was little lesser than 1%. And the risk factors which came out here was younger age, having a male gender, using internet for more than 3 hours a day for leisure time activities, and depressive symptoms. They all predicted internet addiction, and this was among medical students. A similar study which we had done to see whether some of these things get replicated. We had also done this study on a larger cohort of around 1,086 university going students across 3 different locations in South India. And we also found something very similar. The results remain similar. I think mild internet addiction was around 27%, moderate was 9.7, and severe internet addiction was again continued to be less than 1%. And the risk factors here also remain nearly similar, starting from being male gender to spending more than 3 hours a day and having depressive symptoms. So something which has basically been replicated here as well. And last, we also did one another study. This is also among university students. That was among engineering students. This was among university students. So nearly similar findings. So we have found what is this one is most common as depressive symptoms had very clear association with or psychological distress had a very clear association with development of problematic use of the internet. And it was also indicated that why this studies also implicated that if addictive usage of these smartphones or of these applications start very early in life, then it continues to have an impact on their academic learning, and basically even also in later years how much they'll be able to achieve in their life. So this is how possibly now family shared time really looks like, because now basically technology has basically intruded into all possible aspects. It includes your academic activities, it includes your daytime activities, and some of the other family rituals as well. So the concern, or the basically the aspect which I'm trying to share here with you, is that if you can see these circles which are there, what is happening is at this point of time, there is a socially shared need for being constantly connected to the internet, having a persistent online presence, engaging constant checking or updating of statuses. And we have all technological devices available to us, inclusive of mobile phones, tablets, notepads, we have. And it has also lead to decreased face-to-face interaction. But all this time which we are actually spending to have this presence online is basically, this time is being derived from somewhere. This time is being derived for earlier the time which adolescents and young adults and even adults had for themselves, for their family, for new skills learning, for leisure time activities, for other study goals. So the time remains same, but this is time is being extracted from all those activities earlier which were there. And this is what the real risk is, because when you take out time away from all those activities, from relationships, from family, from academic goals and learning, and slowly it gets eroded, then there are going to be challenges which will fall into the domain of mental health among adolescents and young adults in exactly those same areas. To move over to from there, if we understand that likely majority of adolescents and young adults are at risk for excessive for transitioning from healthy use of technology to problematic or excessive or addictive use of technology, the risk is real. But maybe everyone is accessing it. There are a large number of people who access these platforms, but we have to see likely who are at risk. That we'll see little later, but the risk exists for all. Now, to know when does the use of technology becomes transitions from healthy use to problematic use, there are a few of these indicators which are proposed by Griffith. These were one of the earliest indicators which were there. First is called as preoccupation. That is when you engage in excessive amount of use of these digital platforms and you basically have a complete loss of sense of time and you neglect all your basic drives of sleep, appetite, and other daily activities. Second is called as withdrawal. That is when basically you do not have access to smartphones, you feel upset, irritated, angry, and at times tense also when you are away from your smartphones. Last time you have to think about when was the last time you were away from your smartphone for maybe a few hours. And if you have been away from your smartphone for a few hours, you will develop these kind of feelings. So this, when it is very intense, this is called as withdrawal. The third phenomena or the third sign is called as tolerance. That is, over a period of time, you need to keep on increasing the usage of those applications to get the same amount of satisfaction which you are earlier getting by using it for a shorter duration of time, for less number of hours. The fourth one is difficulty in basically controlling or cutting back your usage of digital media platforms or of social networking sites, gaming applications. And at times, even when you make attempts, you are basically unsuccessful. So this is the fourth aspect about one of the signs of uh, use of technology. The fifth one is disregard of harmful consequences. Most of the time, we see adolescents are well aware about some of the concerns like decline in academics, difficulty in parent-child relationships, decline in quality of parent-child relationships, decline in school performance. At times they also lie. At times they become fatigued. Their sleep decreases. Their hygiene levels also drop down. All those things do happen. But despite knowing all those concerns which are developed due to excessive use of technology or problematic use of technology, they still disregard all these things and still want to continue the usage. So if that is happening and they are willing to ignore that, this is another indicator that likely they are having problematic smartphone use. Social communications and interests are lost. So when they are engaging in excessive use, this is another sequelae which happens, that is loss of interest of previous hobbies and interests. They spend less amount of time with their family and friends. Elevation of negative symptoms, what we just saw in our studies also, at times when individuals are actually experiencing low moods, dysphoric moods, at that point of time, likely they are actually going to be at more risk of initiating the use of these technology. And last is hiding the habit from known people or from family and friends. That is lying about the actual time to or the cost to maintain this habit. Costs are actually very minimal now to basically because the internet is very accessible, affordable, and but time is still remains as one of the criteria. So out of this eight criteria, even if the individuals are able to fulfill five of them, then it indicates that they are likely engaging in excessive or problematic use of technology. And if it is there, then there is a need to basically address it and basically start to plan for seeking help. In very simple words, if you cannot remember the criteria, I put it very simply to identify when does digital behaviors become addictions. In very simple words, if you don't remember the criteria, remember this thing: when they actually start to disrupt real life. So real life could be when the daily tasks are getting impacted. Could be school performance, could be work performance, parent-child relationships, absenteeism in school, or unable to complete assignments at school, real life relationships, activities of daily living, including not being able to eat meals on time, delay in meals, decreasing the amount of time they sleep, sleeping quite late, waking up also quite late, also, and a drop in the self hygiene levels, especially for males who are actually engaging in a lot of gaming, which usually happens in the last part of the day and then goes on to the next part of the next day, that is early morning. So they usually have very poor self hygiene levels where they give because they give it the least priority. So if any of these behaviors are also happening, in other words, these are also indicators that they are likely having excessive or problematic use of technology, and it needs to be basically be identified and needs to be addressed. Okay. The other 4C, we also at Shut Clinic, we use this criteria as called as a 4C criteria. Even for we have simplified it further. So first is called as a craving. That is, if you have a continuous desire to use the digital devices. Second is called as control, what we discussed earlier, difficulty in controlling or cutting back the use of digital devices. Compulsion is a strong innate need to use the digital devices. And fourth is consequences, what we discussed. So again, out of these four consequences or of these four criteria, if they meet three, then also they will be the ones who are likely at risk or who are actually having digital addiction now. They're engaging in the problematic use or excessive use or addictive use of technology, and they help is needed for them. Now, just I will be taking over you to some kind of phenomena which we see at our clinic and which we have seen in our practice here. First is called as the text neck syndrome. So, text neck syndrome is when you are engaging in excessive amount of texting, and it, as a result of that, for very long hours, it will result in a lot of stress in your spine, causing a lot of inflation, pain, and spasms in your neck and in your spinal column. So, this graph basically primarily shows you that what happens when you tilt your neck. So when you do not tilt your neck, that is a zero degree. Basically, the weight of your brain with the cerebrospinal fluids is somewhere around 4 to 5.5 kgs. But as the tilt increases, you can see that with the 15-degree tilt, it increases to around 12 kg. With the 30-degree tilt, it increases to around 18 kgs. With the 45-degree tilt, it increases to 22 kgs. And with the 60-degree tilt of your neck, when you're completely immersed in gaming, social networking sites, watching movies for extended durations of time, basically the amount of gravitational pull which is basically exerted on your spinal column, primarily starting from your lower back going all the way up to your neck, is somewhere around 27 kgs. That's the amount of pull or the amount of pressure it will have on your neck. So if it is being used for extended durations of time, we also have seen young adolescents coming with basically physiological body aches and pains also as a concern or addition to there's a fallout of one of the consequences of this one. So this is also an indicator that likely they are having excessive use of technology, and this is also one of the upcoming very common things which we see. Next, which we see is called as a nomophobia, that is the smartphone addiction. That is a feeling or being unable to be away from your smartphone or being unable to use your smartphone for some reason. Could be possibly you have run out of the battery, or you do not have the internet connectivity at that point of time. You do not have mobile signals. So all those things are there. We have some amount of India data in the public domain, but this is another data which is there, which indicates that near around 66% of people experience this feelings. This is called as nomophobia, and in this case, 66% people would like to sleep next to their smartphones primarily, and 20% would rather go shoeless for a week rather than actually not being with their phones. Also, it has been seen that 72% of the people cannot stay more than 5 feet away from their smartphones, and they always need to be within that. This one, you just can take a step back and just try to imagine when was the last time you had stayed away for more than 5 feet away from your smartphone. I think these days, even people, when they are actually going to sleep, then also they would put it next to them. They may not put it next to the side table, on the side table, or on their work desk, which is there. They would just put it below their pillows. Especially adolescents, they will put it on some silent mode, but it will buzz up, and then they will know there are some updates are there. And sometimes we have had adolescents who would wake up in the middle of the night, the phone buzzes up, and they get that buzz, and then they will open up and see who has responded to their posts which are there. So this is another phenomena which we see, and is concerning. It's also on the rise. Then the next aspect, and what we have India data in terms of public domain for it. So there data for both medical students was there and university students. So mild nomophobia was seen in 41% of students, moderate was 42, severe nomophobia was found in around 15.2% of the population. And the most affected range was again found to be between 18 to 24 years of age. Similar findings were also there for medical students, which was similar nomophobia was found in 20% of males, and this time somehow males were outnumbering females, because majority of the studies which have been done appear to be indicating that female adolescents and female young adults are the ones which are primarily more impacted by not being close to their mobile phones. FOMO is another phenomena. It is known as the fear of missing out. But the key and the core component which works behind this is the social anxiety. The social anxiety of being away from a particular very happening event which is happening in the group, and being away from it, and the desire to basically being staying continuously connected to what others are doing in their lives. So this is one of the key things which drives this fear of missing out. What India data we have, which is there in the public domain, is nearly 46% of people spend 6 or more hours in a day actively using the internet. 82% out of this use basically admit to having fear of missing out when they're not connected to internet, and this is one of the figures which is highest globally. Indian women, in this case, 21% outdo Indian men in feeling anxious or lost when they're not connected to their smartphones. And also, majority of them said that they cannot survive more than 5 hours without internet connectivity. And yes, I think this is also one of the reasons you become more susceptible, because when you are constantly in touch with your smartphones, the risk of using, or you have a lot of access to a good number of applications 24 into 7 into 365, then the risk for developing addiction increases, because this technology inherently is addictive by nature. Now, moving on to something else, which we see in a less number of clients who visit us, but it is called as phantom vibration syndrome. So I guess it may have happened. It is basically a normal phenomena. It's a hallucinatory experience wherein there are at times you can basically you believe that your mobile phone or smartphone is basically ringing, or it is basically buzzing up or vibrating against your body when the device is not doing either of it. And we do not have any India data for it at this point of time, but in our clinical experience, we have found that this happens. So if it is happening occasionally, it is understood to be fine. But if it starts to happen more frequently, maybe thrice in a week or more than that, 2 to 3 times in the week, if it is happening, or slightly more than that, then it's an indicator that likely you are engaging in excessive use of your smartphone. So it's an indirect indicator that likely you are engaging in problematic smartphone use. Next is what we call as digital amnesia. Digital amnesia is seen wherein basically majority of the participants in this study, which was done in the public domain, do not remember any information which is there on their smartphone, except maybe one or two phone numbers, maybe which is there for the parents or of an important or significant other. But beyond that, they do not remember anything which is there in the smartphone. Also, most importantly, they were very keen. They were not even interested to remember what is there in the smartphones. And they are saying, they also expressed that nearly 73% of them expressed that loss of the smartphone is going to be very catastrophic for their life. So we'll discuss later what really it means basically, and how digital hygiene habits have evolved out of it. That we'll discuss later. But it's also known as digital amnesia, and in some places it's also known as digital dementia, which majority of people are actually experiencing, because now there no registration of information is not taking place, as a result of which retrieval also does not happen. Next is what we call as phubbing. It is another thing which occurs very, very frequently among all adolescents and also among parents. I would like to bring it to that parents also at times are responsible for it. So phubbing is very, very common. That is, whenever your adolescent or whenever your child is trying to have speak to you, if you are on the smartphone and you're not being able to maintain eye contact with them, then likely this is what is called as phubbing. And if it happens repetitively over a period of time, basically it is impacts the person's self-esteem, it impacts the person's sense of personal agency, it impacts the meaningful communication which they are trying to have with you, it impacts or decreases the sense of belongingness or affiliation, and some amount of personal control over the situation. So if this happens repetitively, it can impact all these aspects and ultimately leads to symptoms of depression and lower relationship satisfaction, or lower marital quality also, and lower parent-child relationships as well. So if this is actually happening, this will also contribute, or this is an indirect, again, an indicator that likely you are engaging in something which is problematic in nature. Facebook depression, I guess, maybe this can also be said as Instagram depression, because we have seen this happening. because people pretend basically their lives on these two social media platforms, that their lives are actually going to be very good, they are very nice, they are actually having the most rewarding experiences in their life, and they want to basically showcase all of this to the world. So the people who consume this, possibly they are at risk, because if they actually, we have been seeing that majority of the population, or at least nearly 25% of them, log onto their favorite social media websites more than 10 times in a day, and they consume enormous amounts of needed and primarily unneeded amounts of information from there, and as a result of which, unknowingly they start comparing themselves to the posts which they see on these platforms, which likely will make them unknowingly unhappy, because, and they will make them feel comparatively they are more worse than all the other people so they are seeing. And over a period of time, this leads to decrease in self-esteem, self-efficacy beliefs, and development of depressive symptoms, and also to an extent anxiety. So if the adolescents actually are in the phase of developing these coping skills, and if they themselves make to feel themselves that they're inferior and they have not achieved much in their life, then this becomes a concern. And especially those adolescents are at risk who likely have these lack of these coping skills. They because lack the perspective for this, and they cannot be blamed, because they're in the phase when they're actually developing these psychological skills at that point of time. Next is what we call as selfie-taste. I think if you have come across this phenomena of selfie taking, so this technically we call as selfie-taste. That is when individuals, especially, are compelled to continuously basically take pictures and post them on the social networking sites. So we have India data for this. There's India research data, and it is published in International Journal of Mental Health Addiction, and they have come up with three criteria as well. So they have said that people are having borderline addiction, or when they have take three selfies three times a day, but they do not post necessarily all of them, or they do not post it on social media. Acute is one when they take at least three selfies at least three times in a day, and they post every one of them on social media. Third one is when chronic, when they actually have an uncontrollable urge and they take at least six selfies in a day, and they post each one of it, or nearly each one of them at least six times they post it. So the concern here is the amount of time which is being spent on taking these photos and putting it up on the social media platforms. So that is basically will fulfill the criteria of behavioral addictions, and this is real. And another tag which India has is whether the India could be considered as selfie debt capital of the world. So what scientific studies indicate, yes, India is the selfie death capital of the world as well. And this was published in 2018 in Journal of Family Medicine and Primary Care. This was basically sampled between 2011 and 17. The data is slightly old, but it is scientific in nature. It is 259 people who were killed between this time by taking these selfies, during the process of taking these selfies, and the mean age was somewhere around 23 years. And males outnumbered females, because likely they have higher risk-taking abilities for this. And the highest numbers you can see is 118 out of those 259 are from India, and the remaining are from our neighboring countries, Russia, and then United States, and our neighbor. And the reasons why they were there is primarily for drowning, or from basically a fall from a height, or basically if they had got themselves into an accident during the transport. So these were some of the reasons and how they have actually died. If you have been a resident of Bangalore, you would know that, and if you've been following media reports or on print media or digital media, you would see that every now and then there are people who actually get drowned in lakes, ponds, or near waterfalls, or near places of when they've gone for trekking. Some of these reasons remain undocumented, but could one of the reasons be, at times when it is published properly, we see that at times they were trying to basically take very exotic selfies from very exotic location, and as a result of which they slipped and this tragedy happened. So if that is, you have an uncontrollable urge, then likely it's another indicator. Now, next is what we call as Snapchat dysmorphia. So, Snapchat dysmorphia is when people are actually trying to be looking like their versions of selfie versions of themselves, and primarily this is governed by the social media feedback which they get on just Facebook, on Instagram, and also on Snapchat, because it offers you a lot of options to basically play with your face, to change the way you look, to soften the skin lines or the wrinkles, or the way your eyes look, or the size and shape of your eyes and nose, and other physical aspects of your face. So because this helps you to look more attractive, and this is the norm which is there on social media. Thus, you will have to basically do that. Over a period of time, this basically impacts on losing their perspectives of what reality is like or what they actually look like. So if this is happening, what really does that, it basically pushes people to actually come in for surgeries or report for surgeries. We have not seen cases, but there are documented cases in research where they have been pushed to go for bariatric surgeries, and where they go in and request for these changes to their facial features primarily, and they want to look exactly like their selfie versions. And if there are demands like this, or if you are thinking about these things, and if adolescent comes up with these ideas, this is another indicator that basically they have been slightly losing perspectives of who they really are, and whether they need such kind of interventions actually. There would be other psychological reasons as to why they go for, or why they are actually requesting for these kind of changes to their facial appearance. The upcoming phenomena, which is also we have found, is called as the cyber violence or cyber victimization, wherein adolescents basically are being duped into revealing personal information. Someone is sending them threatening emails or text messages, spreading lies or rumors about them, or they're trying to basically post pictures to embarrass them. So this phenomena is increasing, and we are currently doing a study on lived experiences of these individuals. At this point of time, we don't have any data, but maybe in a few months, three to 4 months, we will publish some data from the Shut Clinic. This is the data from a decade of data till 2019. You can see this data from US. You can see on an average, around 15.7% is the prevalence rate for cyberbullying. So if this is, so the risk always exists. So if you are actually 100 people go in and they try and have interactions, likely there's a risk there. In the US, 15% of them will face these kind of threats. Now, very quickly, I think I'll skip this because I think we have less amount of time. I will just like to take you to some of the risk factors which are likely there. Some of the risk factors which we see are in adolescents are basically lower extroversion, lower agreeableness in personality, difficulty, and they find it difficult to basically identify their unpleasant emotions, difficult to regulate their unpleasant emotions, lower self-esteem, having shyness and social anxiety, also having symptoms of depression and anxiety, having poor interpersonal skills to develop new relationships, to maintain relationships, and also not being having any kind of self-efficacy beliefs which are not tied up with the digital platforms. So, and sometimes also aggression and anger, aggressive ruminations which are there. So if they are there, they likely move towards what we saw, cyberbullying or cyber victimization, which is there. But some of these factors in personality predispose young adolescents and even young adults towards problematic use of these technologies, because they likely fulfill some of these aspects within them. The individuals, it has also been found that there are correlations between individuals who have high levels of social anxiety or moderate levels of social anxiety. They spend a lot of time on social media platforms primarily, because that is where they where they basically are able to make new relationships. They get feedback, they get appreciated, they have a sense of belongingness there. They get their followers, they get their thumbs up. All those things happen on there, which may not would have happened in the offline world for them. So these are one of the ways how these risk factors relate to the risk which is there. Sometimes of I just brief over this. These are specifically risk factors for gaming among boys actually, because these are what we call as motives. So they have at times these motives for achievement. Motivation is there to gain more power and popularity, to earn more rewards, to increase self-esteem and support. At times there is also an escapism motive which is there to escape any hyper conflicts which is there with their parents, or unpleasant emotions which is there. At times they also want to engage in some kind of role play, or wherein they basically have online avatars which try to basically have abilities or capabilities which can be, which they do not, which they wish they could had in real life. So it is control, the motive of control being wherein they basically develop a digital avatar and they want to basically control the virtual world around them, and which sense of control is actually absent in the real world. The need for aggression at times where they want to fulfill and pursue their aggressive needs, and this precedes at times use of internet gaming, because there are a number of gaming platforms which are available, and number of games or genres of games which are available, which basically facilitate aggression. Actually, all these games which are first person games, which are shooter games, all those do that. Emotional regulation motives to manage anger and precede cyberbullying perpetration. It happens, and at times last is little less. That is a curiosity or discovery to find new friends, interesting gossip or activities, and to avoid basically boredom in their life. Just one second. Yeah. So yeah, so these are some of the important motives which can be there, and last is aspect is about boredom and loneliness in life. So I think that is not a phenomena which we are recently seeing in our collectivist societies, but now we are slowly seeing that young adolescents are also saying that they're actually coming with boredom, and they do not know what to do with that boredom actually, and to an extent some amount of loneliness also they are able to experience, irrespective of being staying in an urban environment where there are a lot of people around. So this is something which we knew we are discovering, and this could be one of the other factors of risk, which is also related in our context as well. Okay, I'll skip this because I think we do not have much time. We can take it a little later about this. This is just a model which I put out here. Okay. Now, what we do at our clinic in terms of the interventions, very briefly, we follow the 3A approach. In this 3A approach, the first A is called as acknowledge and accept. We basically facilitate them to basically acknowledge and see if they can accept their overuse of technology. The second is called as ask, where basically the second phase wherein they basically can ask help from the family members, friends, or mental health professionals. And third is when the real intervention starts to basically allow developing a healthy use of technology. So these are three phases of help seeking in which we see our clients, the adolescents and young adults basically come to us. And if they are, irrespective of where they are, we will basically be able to help them. So in the first approach, we have three approaches. In the first approach, we basically teach them what we call as a digital hygiene skills. In the digital hygiene skills, I think what we do is we will teach them these activities. The first one we teach them is called as a ritual of a phone basket. Phone basket ritual primarily is wherein we basically collaborate with the entire family and teach them basically if they can come up with a particular time in the day, especially in the evening, wherein all their digital devices basically move into a basket. It's a basically a basket wherein all the technological devices can actually go in, and as a result of which, after that, they will not be able to access them unless and until there's a need for. So basically, then after that, they cannot really access it, and the remaining time of the evening they will basically be spending in all offline activities unless and until there's maybe a phone rings and they have to pick up, but they will not go back to see their social media feeds, other feeds from other applications, notifications, and other things. Second thing is maybe put your notifications in the silent in the evening after a particular time, and it should be for everyone, inclusive of the parents as well. Try to see if you can during the day, if you can basically go back to a smartphone and maybe sometimes in the day. I know it's difficult, but try and see if you can have a staggered response to this, and try and see if you can maybe in the evenings if you can basically change your status to something like only urgent calls or call if urgent or text if urgent. If you can basically change it, and that is there, it makes things easier because you are creating some amount of boundaries around your own time, because you are learning to respect your own time. If you do that, maybe others will do the same as well. Smartphone free time, in a longer way, in a larger perspective, we call it digital fasting. Like how we fast on other days when you're fasting for other purposes. Now we can also do what we call as digital fasting, wherein basically you try to stay away from all these technological devices and primarily from the internet and all its applications which are there. on any day, preferably maybe a Sunday. If you can stay away from it and try and see if you can basically invest all your time and energies into something else in an offline activities. And last is what we propose is what we call as a no phone zones. Again, a collaborative approach wherein parents and adolescents get together and maybe we can basically agree to a common one where it has to be not only be followed by adolescents but by the parents as well, to decide on these no phone zones which can be there in the house. So these is the level A, wherein we call as digital hygiene skills, and it is for everyone. So that if so, this is level A intervention wherein we do that, and if not, the next level of interventions which we will find, somehow I am not able to see that. One second. Okay, second one we see. Second one is called as a digital timeouts. The timeouts which are there, just to briefly showcase to you that what's the impact of a timeout. So timeout basically is what we are saying, to stay away from these smartphones, to stay away from all the technological devices for basically a specified period of a time during the day. And what does the evidence show to us? Basically, the evidence shows to us that digital detoxification, in scientific terms, is actually really helpful. So I'm just showcasing these studies and its impact. So it has says that it can actually impact the duration of use. So the 6 studies which basically assessed it, they found that there was a significant decrease in the smartphone use compared to the baseline or to another group which was not engaging in the digital detoxification time which was there. It also helped to basically improve your self-regulation in one of the 2 studies. Procrastination improved in both the studies when you were engaging in detoxification exercises. Sleep improved in one of the studies. Life satisfaction, overall life satisfaction increase was there after taking a break from these social networking sites in 4 out of the 8 studies which assessed this effect. That is what we call as the overall positive impact it has on your overall mood. It improved in 2 out of the 7 studies which are assessed. Anxiety improved in 1 study. Depressive symptoms, very significant decline in depressive symptoms occurred after individuals took a break from social media use or smartphone use in general for extended durations of time. Stress decrease in 3 out of the 5 studies which was there. So we know that it has been basically improvements have been seen if you actually engage in digital detoxification times and you separate out some time which you're going to spend away from your smartphones. So this has been shown to be impactful. So this is level B of intervention if you think the level A has not worked. And the third one which we offer is cognitive behavioral interventions. So the third one, because cognitive behavioral interventions till now in the field of addiction and in the field of digital addiction continues to be the most evidence-based forms of interventions which are there, and can also help us to not only address the digital addiction, but it also helps us to address comorbid depressive anxiety symptoms, social anxiety. It also helps to address if there are any comorbid personality related concerns, if there are poor motivation which is there, and it also leads to, it is also significantly better than other things, other available interventions. And if pharmacological interventions are needed in a very, very few of the adolescents which we see, unless and until there is a comorbid condition which exists with them. And there are no significant differences which are also found between CBT and other psychological treatments. So that is how it is at this point of time. In terms of some other data, okay, sorry, this is basically some research data I had put, and this is an amalgamation of around 16 studies on all on CBT, and primarily they have been shown that they have been effective across. And if you see the in terms of hours, they have given around 16 hours of structured interventions, and they had followed these people for around 6 months of time, 1.5 to 6 months of time. These studies have been primarily from our neighboring countries: China, 10 studies, Korea, 3 studies, USA, another 3 studies. And if you see in scientific terms, if you see the, if we call it the effect size, how much the study has been able to show the impact. So CBT has been able to show a larger impact from, like you can see it evaluated around 1.48 to 2.38, and which is better than other psychological interventions. It is also better than pharmacological interventions. That is what been indicated by these meta-analytic studies by Zajac and Winkler, which have been there. Newer studies have come up, but this evidence still holds good. And I think just to summarize, so to comprehend that digital addiction is basically a major public health concern, upcoming public health concern, and basically technology use or internet has a serious potential to cause severe amounts of psychological harm. It continues to be one of the main, most persistent and most difficult of the parenting challenges which remain in the digital era for parents. Social media addiction, gaming addiction, smartphone addiction are main times of the digital or technology addiction which are there. The consumption or the problematic online consumption of pornography is minimally reported, but it is actually going by public data available. It is one of the major forms of behavioral addiction. Cyberbullying perpetration or cyberbullying is basically the upcoming phenomena, which is very closely linked to social networking sites use. And we have seen that digital behaviors impact all possible kinds of areas of functioning, inclusive of biological functioning, social functioning, social interpersonal relationships, quality of life, academic performance. All these things get impacted significantly. There are also risk factors which we briefly saw. It could be gender, it could be personality variables, interpersonal relationships, and we saw at what we can do, starting with hygiene skills to detoxification to CBT, and also at times it's to go beyond CBT. Some of these, they say that multi-level counseling programs are which are basically for different stakeholder groups, not only exclusively for adolescents but also for parents and for others. They also are considered to be helpful in addressing this. And yeah, so basically the message is to see if complete abstinence is really is not possible, but see if controlled use is the indicated outcome. If we can learn to basically manage the extent to which we engage in the use of smartphones or overall technology. And just a little bit about our research. I guess all of our research publications are on the ResearchGate handle, I think, which can be accessed if you just put my name, Nitin Anand, on ResearchGate. And ResearchGate, it will just show you all the research which we have done from the Shut Clinic in NIMHANS, and it is available online for you can download and basically go through it. And just yeah, these are some acknowledgements which we have for my research team, both faculty members, colleagues, and my research scholars. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can go ahead on my ResearchGate and also basically get in touch with me over email. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Nitin. It's been incredibly informative to learn that there is so much out there, that so many people are struggling with something that so many people also deem so innocuous because it's so prevalent in everyday life. You know, we don't hear that technology nearly as addictive as other substances, things like that. I see one question here in the chat from Dr. Lata. She asks, what is your opinion on ChatGPT as a therapist, especially after the recent case of suicide following therapy?
Okay, I think ChatGPT, I think, is still evolving. I think is one of the modalities of technology. So they are still adapting. But I guess we cannot really rely completely on ChatGPT or similar platforms for offering advice. There are recent cases also. I think many cases have happened. I think one or two cases have happened in US also, where they have been actually some of the individuals have been taking therapy with ChatGPT for a longer duration of time. Parents were completely unaware about it, and it led to the person or the adolescent or the young adult basically engaging in self harm and leading to completed suicide. So at this point of time, basically completely relying on digital platforms or digital technologies or digital avatars for seeking help and is basically very very risky. At this point of time, it should be always be done in combination with your offline therapist, which you can actually meet or either online or offline, so that some amount of moderation does take place.
Yes, that does make sense, Doctor. But how does a parent or a guardian or caretaker go about making these interventions in a child's life?
I guess the approach which they need to have is to basically have a kind of approach where they what we call is to have a kind of authoritative parenting, which we say in scientific terms, wherein basically they they set clear boundaries in terms of usage boundaries. They can set what are the clear guidelines for that, both for their usage as well as for the children's usage. Try to decide what could be the no phone zones through the day. Also educate them about digital literacy, which is there. identify about what is the harmful content available online, how not to engage with people, how to identify imposters, how not to give out your information about your address, about your email, about your phone numbers to people, how not to basically share pictures which are GPS tagged with location, which gives it out at time of the day. All those things, because many times you have seen adolescents are quite naive. They basically feel that they can actually access technology and they can access these social media platforms, and there are people out there who will basically listen to them, appreciate them, validate them, and maybe they will increase the number of followers. So they're only having one agenda. They do not know the risks which basically are out there, and there is larger set of people which are there for fulfilling their own needs. So third one is encouraging open communication. So authoritative parenting does not mean authoritarian parenting. Authoritarian parenting, you go to the extreme end where you are extremely strict, where you basically take away all technological devices from your children. You have very strict timelines or very thing, and then you do not allow them any access. So I'm not sharing about that. I'm saying just if they can engage in open communication, they can discuss about the risks and of the technology use and the benefits of technology use, and develop a collaborative plan for usage. And also encourage, the fourth thing is also encourage offline activities, or also encourage wherein they have a balanced routine in terms of sufficient amount of time for the sleep, engaging in regular meal timings, and some designated time for their academics. So I think if there is a balance, I think it will be found to be helpful. What we also found is that all of these strategies, if we spend more time with mothers to basically with parenting, it has in studies also it has shown it has a better impact in comparison to fathers, because it is known that mothers spend invariably more amount of time with the children. So if you are able to engage mothers in interventions, then they are going to have far more better impact on minimizing the digital technology use in comparison to fathers. But yeah, definitely fathers also can contribute and do contribute to the parenting practices. Yeah.
And we're still taking a few more questions. In the meanwhile, while we wait for a couple, I have one question. How would you react to parents who, minimize digital addiction by saying it's just a phone, it's just a screen, at least, or alcohol? How would you go about addressing that?
I think that will fall into that permissive parenting. This one. So I think if you are very extremely permissive, and maybe they are, then there's also a risk. If you are completely having a laissez-faire kind of parenting or completely permissive parenting, then you also run a risk that without any kind of guardrails or without any kind of guidelines, you are basically giving the use of technology can be done, because most of these technologies actually come with enormous amounts of risks which no one basically educates us about. And if you would have seen, there's a sustained campaign have been done by advocacy groups in US and Australia, and now Instagram has come up with guidelines for usage, and they are there on the web page of Instagram itself. And that has been after so many years of the usage of Instagram, and so much of misuse of Instagram has happened. And same now is happening with Meta, and same now is happening with Meta. Already a lot of cases have actually happened where people have developed their digital avatars, and those digital avatars have been personally been violated in the digital space. It has actually one of the documented, I think, in public domain, has also led to post-traumatic stress disorder, because the way the person was actually handled when their avatar went into that digital world. So you have to basically also know that this approach will also not help, that it's ultimately only a technology, but the technology is basically allowing the access to your thoughts, emotions, and it is going to impact your behavior.
Okay.
So, and especially in terms of cyber violence, one of the studies which are undergoing with at NIMHANS will come out with the data, because what we've seen that with physical bullying, which actually takes place, if you're away from the bully, you feel safe. But in bullying which happens on online platforms, even within one of our clients had actually said that I cannot even feel safe in my own home, because I know that person knows where my home is physically. The person knows when I'm going to be on online, what platforms I use, and that person is actually watching me out. The moment I actually go out there, they basically abuse me. So I'm not even feeling safe in my own house. So you can just imagine the impact which actually cyber violence can actually have, or So the person who engages in the bullying is called as a cyberbully perpetrator. The person who receives it is the cyberbully victim. So I think that aspect about I think parents, maybe they also needs to be educated about it. I think we are if we are able to educate them about these risks, I think they will be much more informed about it. But yeah, maybe they perceive that possibly it is low risk in comparison to others. Yeah, it may be low risk, but it has its own risks now.
Yes, absolutely. I think there might not be any more questions. I think we've come to a close of our session. It's been incredibly informative, Dr. Nitin. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Uh, I'd like to leave everyone with one thought. While everything we've shared sounds scary, technology isn't the enemy, it is just a tool. The challenge is using it without losing ourselves and taking care of our children while we do so. But finding a balance doesn't mean logging off completely, it means just being mindful about how we log on. I'd also like to say a heartfelt thank you to Dr. Nitin Anand. Thank you to the NIMHANS Shut Clinic for all the work you're doing and for collaborating with us here at SDT, as well as to everyone who showed up today. Thank you for taking the time to learn more and be the best version of yourselves you can for those around you. Thank you, everyone. Take a minute to log off and have a great weekend ahead.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Bye.